Hey, it's Greg. Today I'm going to walk you through how I plan travel when I'm visiting a new city. The process is pretty simple and it involves 3 steps. The first is obtaining the information from travel guides, magazines, web sources, and other sources of information. The second is recording the data so that it's available at the right time and place for you. And the third is being able to access that data when you're actually traveling. I should note that I don't bring travel guides with me. I actually plan the information in advance. This is because travel guides are not really organized in a way that's conducive to accessing the information on the go. I usually want to access my information by place, but travel guides usually are organized by category. In addition, I find travel guides distracting, that I don't really read them while I'm actually traveling, and they're really just something that adds extra weight to your bag, which is not good when you're trying to travel light like I do, where I only bring one backpack for a multi-week trip. So first I want to talk about sources of information. I get my travel information from a lot of different places, such as magazines, the web, and travel guides. And one of my favorite sources of information is the Monocle Travel Guide series. What I really like about the Monocle Travel Guide series is they present a well-rounded view of a city. Unlike a travel guide like Lonely Planet that might put you in a number of tourist traps and really send you to only the most common places, something like Monocle will send you to some of those places, but they'll also send you to a lot of restaurants that locals go to. They'll show you some architecture sites that are off of the beaten path. So I really like the recommendations that they give in these guides, and they're not too expensive. I'm actually going to use the Hong Kong travel guide as an example today to show you what's so great about these travel guides and then how I put that information into my own system for traveling.
So let's take a quick overview of the Hong Kong Travel Guide. The first thing you'll find is a map, which gives you an overview of the city and the different areas that are mentioned. Then you'll find a list of hotels. These are pretty pricey generally, but sometimes you'll find some good bargains, followed by food and drink. This is probably my favorite section in the whole series. Next you'll see retail, if you're looking to do some shopping. This is a great section to look at. You'll see some editorials, some things you can read. Then the culture guide, which will show you things like museums, architecture, shows you can see, followed by the design and architecture section. Then sport and fitness. What's really cool about this section is it actually gives you some running routes if you're into that kind of thing, as well as some other sports you can take part in. And then my other favorite section is the walks section, which takes usually 4 or 5 neighborhoods per city and gives you a nice walking plan for each city with a bunch of waypoints. I actually take pictures of each one of these and add to my Evernote so that I have it saved.
I use a software product called Evernote, which allows you to synchronize basically unlimited notebooks between all your devices, from your computer, smartphone, tablet, second phone, etc.
I've got a link in the description where you can check out Evernote and you can actually get a small discount if you decide to go for one of the premium plans. You'll want to download that on both your computer and on your phone. You can see in my Evernote I have a notebook called City To-Do List and a list of a bunch of cities, London, Kyoto, Tokyo, Berlin, Hong Kong. And we're looking at the Hong Kong note here. And you can see at the top of the note I've got a bunch of places listed. These are generally things that I just add when I find them in a magazine or on a website, but I don't know where they are yet. Something that I add quickly. When I do get time before the trip, I try to organize everything by the neighborhood that they're in. So I will actually move things from the top into the neighborhood. And if you look at the description of each item, you'll see that it's the name of the place, and then often it'll give a description of what the place is. So it could be a Korean restaurant or a historic architectural site that I want to check out. Whatever it is, I'll put that information there. So one of the places I saw in the Monocle guide was Mito Cafe, and it's in this neighborhood, so I'm putting it here. And then when I arrive in that neighborhood, I can look, what are places I want to eat, and I can see that it'll be nearby. So I also take pictures with Evernote of each of the walks pages in the Monocle Guides, so that way I really can just go to those when I get to the neighborhood, because I find those to be much more useful and organized. They show a map, they show a bunch of places you can visit, and some great descriptions. Like I mentioned, the Monocle Guides won't be my only source of information for things to do in a city. So for example, here's a site that lists some restaurants in a neighborhood in Hong Kong, and this Bib and Hops restaurant looks pretty good to me. It's got Korean food, so I'm gonna write that down in my notebook. Since I know it's in the neighborhood Wan Chai, I'm not going to put it in the top section. I'm actually just going to put it directly in the Wan Chai section in the notebook, because there's no sense going back and doing it later if I can just do it now. The last thing I do before a trip is try to move the things that are at the top of Evernote into their actual neighborhood. So I'm looking at this preset interval coffee bar, and I want to figure out what neighborhood that is. So I'm going to go to Google Maps and try to find out which neighborhood it is. And it turns out that it's in Central. So I'm going to move preset interval coffee bar, which is actually just called interval coffee bar, into the Central neighborhood, so I know to check that out when I'm in Central.
Evernote is great, but you do have to pay for it for anything more than basic functionality, so you should also take a look at Microsoft OneNote and Apple Notes to see if they fit your needs better. The third thing I want to talk about is how I access information. As you've probably noticed, I don't usually put addresses in the notebook. I just put the name of the place and a short description. The only exception is when it's on like the 7th floor of a building and it's hard to get to, something that might not be obvious when you do a Google Maps search.
When I arrive in a neighborhood, I will open up Evernote, go to my city notebook, Hong Kong in this case, and I'll scroll to the neighborhood that I'm in. And I'll check out, what's in this neighborhood that I thought was interesting. I'm kind of hungry right now, so I'm gonna look for a burger, and I see that this Butcher's Club place looks pretty good. So I'm gonna copy that and go over to Google Maps and find out where it is, and I'm gonna go get a burger. The other thing I want to show you is that I can go over to the notes I created for the walks, where I took pictures of the walk section, and depending on the neighborhood I'm in, I can just click on that neighborhood and zoom in so I can read the text on my phone and see all the information that I wanted to check out. So I'm inspired to go on that walk.
So you do need to have a data connection, both to access the notebook and to use Google Maps or an equivalent while you're in the destination. If you've traveled abroad, you probably know that accessing data from your main carrier is usually expensive, or if you get a SIM card, it can be a bit annoying to set up and do the handoff from your main carrier. But I want to talk about Project Fi from Google. This carrier is a little bit different from the other carriers. The main advantage for international travel is that they charge you the same data rate overseas as they would in the US. What's great about Project Fi is it actually works in over 174 countries, most of the ones that you would probably visit.
I've got a link to the Project Fi website in the description where you can actually get a $20 discount on your first month of service. I just want to walk you through the plan so you understand how it works. You have to pay a base rate of $20 a month, and you get unlimited calls and texts. Those are free in the US, but only the texts are free overseas. If you're able to use Wi-Fi overseas, you may be able to get the calls for free, but otherwise the rate will depend on the country. They're pretty competitive for international calling rates. Now here's what really makes Project Fi different, is that you pay $10 per gigabyte, and that doesn't matter if you're in the US or you're in another country, you'll always pay $10. Now this data rate applies to both your smartphone and any other devices you have. You can actually get extra free SIM cards for your iPad or for a second phone, which are data only, but they will allow you to surf the web, and the only charges you're going to get are for the data that you use, the additional data that you use on those devices. Now, if you are a heavy data user, and I certainly am when I'm overseas, you might be worried about how much this $10 per gigabyte data thing is really going to end up costing you. And what's really cool about Project Fi is they have a feature called bill protection. So if you only need to use 2 gigabytes in a month, they'll charge you $20 for the data, or $40 total because $20 for the plan or $20 for data. That scales right up to 6 gigabytes where they'll charge you $80 per month. But the amazing thing about Project Fi is once you go past that 6 gigabytes, you'll never be charged more than $80 in a month. And that includes international data usage.
What's so cool about this is that you can effectively have an unlimited plan for $80 a month when you need it, but when you don't need that extra data, you can actually pay less. So you might pay $30 for 1 gigabyte or $40 for 2 gigabytes in a month, no matter if you're in the US or overseas.
Now, the one thing that might be a little bit limiting about Project Fi is there are only a handful of phones that you can use on it as your phone. So I personally have the Pixel 2 XL, and there are a few other devices. But note that you can put iPads, iPhones, laptops, other devices on the plan, but they'll be for data only, not for calls or texts. On my upcoming trip, I'm actually bringing both my main Pixel 2 XL and another iPhone that I stuck a data-only SIM in, so I have backup phones and I can use 2 cameras, which works for my workflow a little bit better.
And because I'm not paying insane data rates overseas, I feel much more liberated because I can access Google Maps, I can tether to my laptop, and I know it's not going to cost me a fortune just because I'm accessing it in a different country. So I know my method isn't perfect, but it suits my style of travel, which is ending up in a neighborhood and then just walking around and exploring. What this really allows me to do is to have some waypoints that I can set as destinations for lunch or visiting a store or anything else that might be of interest. And then otherwise, I'm exploring without sitting scrutinizing a travel guide the entire time. I'm really taking in the full city. If you have a different way of planning travel or any suggestions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Perhaps we could improve this method over time. So thanks for watching. I've got a bunch more travel videos coming out soon. I hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button so you'll be the first to know when those videos come out.